In today's video, we're going to be swapping out this existing receptacle with one of these square style receptacle. Functionally, they do the exact same thing. This one is more just an architectural piece. And in this room, there's other ones of these, so it kind of got mixed matched. So we're trying to make sure everything is the same throughout the room. Let's get to it. I like to go over things you're going to need for this project. You're going to need a receptacle, faceplate. I like to use Wagos. You're going to need some spare Romex. I have a 15 amp circuit breaker, so 14 gauge Romex will do. An outlet tester, screwdriver. Probably going to want some wire strippers and pliers. This is a combination. A multimeter or a tester. You're probably also going to want a non-contact voltage tester and maybe some electrical tape. Now we're going to have to identify the circuit, so get your outlet tester. Plug it in, see how it lights up. That means there is voltage present. So all you're going to do is go find your circuit panel and you're going to turn off the breakers until the light goes out, and then we'll test it again for voltage. Here we are at the panel. I identified the breaker, turn it off. Now we just got to go make sure that the voltage is actually off. As you can see, the outlet tester is plugged in, but the lights are turned off. So all we have to do now, take off that faceplate, and then we're going to make sure, double check that the voltage is off by using our non-contact voltage tester. Turn it on, rub it on some clothing. Let's see if I can get it to, see how it beeped? That means it works because it picked up static electricity. Now touch the sides of the receptacle. There's no beeping. Let's test it again. It beeps, we know it still works. We can turn it off now. Now, carefully remove the receptacle. Well, you may notice here, see how there is a screw in the bottom, but there's not in the top. Don't do that. They used a drywall screw. That was barely in. So this guy's barely in. We're going to pull it out by using the yoke, and we'll replace it with screws. Make sure they actually fit to the box. Pull it out. Just grabbing the yoke. Now I like to get my tester or your multimeter. Take out the leads. Turn on to voltage. AC, that's V with the squiggly line. And I like to touch hot, which is the black, and ground, which is the bare copper, 0 volts. Touch the other hot, 0 volts. Let's do the same thing with our neutral, which is the white. 0 volts to ground, 0 volts to ground. Now lastly, let's touch black and white together, 0 volts. So we know we can work in there. We've confirmed that the voltage is off, or the circuit breaker is off, because there's no voltage present. So let's go replace this guy. If you guys have been sticking around for any of my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of the jumper method. So what that is you end up, see how on this device, they had one wire go on one of the screws, another wire go on the other side of the screw. I'm not a fan of that, because what can happen is the little tab can overheat and crack, and then you can lose all the other receptacles down the line. So what I like to do is cut yourself about a 6-inch long piece of Romex of the same gauge as your circuit breaker. So we saw that the circuit breaker was a 15 amp circuit breaker. So pull yourself out. Now I'm going to start with the ground. So let's disconnect the ground. Straighten that guy out. And let's put it under a Wago. Just put the lever up, locks it down, same thing, lock it down, there we go. That's one jumper. Now let's do the same thing with the white and the black. I'm gonna start with white. Just gonna cut them off, it's easier. You just need to strip off probably about 3/4 of an inch, maybe, of insulation. Straighten it up. These Wagos, they just lever action up. That's why I love them. Of course, they're in the description. Let's straighten this guy out so he goes in right. There we go. Now, get that 6-ish inch long piece. Strip both ends. There we go, got white. Now I'm gonna do the same thing with black, which is our hot. Just trimming it off because trying to unscrew them is kind of a pain sometimes. Take that 6-inch long piece of black Romex, 14 gauge. Strip about, again, 3/4 of an inch. Now just take that Wago, slides in, lever action, locks her down. I'm gonna strip away my black. Sometimes that insulation gets stiff over time. And I'm just straightening it out with my electrician pliers. Which, by the way, if you guys are in the market for getting pliers, these guys are phenomenal. I love them. And just shove it onto that wire nut. Everything's a little stiff. There we go. Boom, just like that. We're good. All right, now take your receptacle and we're going to have to, let's start with, I think I'm gonna do ground first. So I like making a hook. Actually, while we're here, we'll make a hook on all of them. Let me do the hook on my black. There we go. Now, when you put these on the screws, it's really important that you get the correct orientation, right? So the way we tighten down a screw, at least on receptacles, is it's clockwise, so righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if I put the hook facing to the right, as I tighten up, it'll actually self-tighten. But if I put the hook backwards, if I face it to the left, when I screw righty-tighty, it's gonna open up that hook face. So we gotta make sure that we have the hook facing the correct way, which is to the right, clockwise. So I'll start with green, which is, of course, our ground. Now, I just gotta close it with the pliers. There we go. And tighten it up. She's not going nowhere. Make these good and snug. Don't be afraid to tighten these up. Now, I'm gonna do my neutral, but I'm gonna tighten in both sides. Well, I'll tighten in one side because I'm only gonna use one. The reason why they have 2 screws, by the way, is because you can break that tab and you can actually make like the top one on a switched circuit. So again, the hook facing to the right so that when I tighten it clockwise, it'll tighten itself up. There we go. And last but not least, we'll do the same thing with black. Hook facing to the right, so when we tighten it clockwise, it tightens up. I know it sounds very repetitive, but those are things that especially homeowners get wrong. They'll put the hook the wrong way and it makes a crappy connection. I'm just tightening up that top one so it doesn't stick out. So at this point, all we got to do is wrap it with electrical tape, shove it in the wall, put the faceplate on, we're good. Here you can see we have the black, tightened up both screws so that this one isn't rattling around. You can see the hook was faced to the right, so that way, you know, it's hooked that way. So that way when you tighten it up, it self-tightens. Same thing with the neutral here. The hook again facing clockwise to the right, and then green bare copper ground right there. There's the way it goes. You can see why I love these guys. They just lever action, super quick. So we'll just tape it up and shove it in the wall. Get your 3M electrical tape. Don't get that cheapo brand. I mean, it'll save a couple bucks, but it's just not worth it. You want something that you know you can rely on, especially something that's UL listed. Okay. Now, technically, you are not allowed to use drywall screws. Technically, you have to use these machine 32, so it's 632, I think. Maybe they're 832. Maybe they're 832 screws. So we're gonna see what we can get to work. However, these guys do work fine. They're not technically allowed, but I feel confident that they would never cause an issue. There we go. That's installed. I put the ground up. That is what's consistent with the rest of the room. There's no NEC code on it yet, but I'm sure at some point there will be. So as of right now, it's up to your preference. So all we have to do is put the faceplate on. So that just takes this little screw. You can see I did have to end up going with those drywall screws. Again, you have to use 832, 32-inch or 32 threads per inch screw, machine screw of some sort, but drywall screws work without issue. Never had a problem with them, but technically you're not supposed to use those. Here we are. Turn that breaker back on. Let's go test for voltage. Back at the outlet. Top works. Let's put in the bottom. Bottom works. Now let's confirm voltage. Voltage AC with our tester. Now this is a, what do you call it? A tamper resistant receptacle, so they're a little bit harder to test. So 116, roughly 120 volts is what we're supposed to have. Let's confirm on the top. 116, we're good. That's it for today's video. Thanks for sticking around and watching. I think this looks much better than this old guy. I mean, you could see they did a crappy job painting over it. Plus, they also had a 20 amp receptacle on a 15 amp circuit, so there's issues there. I think this is much safer think it looks cleaner, matches the rest of the room. As always, work safely, make sure the power is turned off, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.